Hello, everybody. I'm Baer, speaking from Tel Aviv. Although I cannot see you, I guess you are all very special, a very special audience, interested like me in using tech to turn our changing world into a safer and greener place. Indeed, our humanity has moved in the blink of an eye from papyrus to quantum computing, and from the floppy, for those who can remember the floppy, to the cloud. We have allowed a new data world to emerge made of IoT, machine learning, artificial intelligence, blockchain, all are big tech. We are in a world that eats big data for breakfast, but it's not a free lunch. Nothing is virtual here. It has a huge impact on energy consumption and on our environmental footprint. On the positive side, we might wonder how deep tech help us to mitigate all these impacts. So getting to our panelists, we had a challenge. We wanted all the speakers to bring their insightful vision, but we wanted also them to have a double background in energy and in IT. So the first speaker was the easiest to find since Lior Handelsman lived very nearby me in Tel Aviv. But the Iranian woman in New York was more tricky. Fay Arjomandi, you are the founder of mimik. Hello.
Hi, good morning and good evening. Pleasure to be here with both of you and the audience.
And Lior, nice to see that you are at the same page with me.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
Thank
yes,
you.
Tel Aviv. Yes, we are in the same time zone in beautiful Tel Aviv.
Lior, if you allow me, I'll start with you. You have a great career, fascinating. It's divided into three parts, or actually I allow myself to do so. The first part was in the Israeli army. I think you were there 12 very long years. And then you co-founded Solar Edge, and you stayed there in a C position, in a C-level position, for 14 years. You actually, unlike other fellow soldiers, when you jumped out from the army, you decided to surf on the green wave and not on cybersecurity or on autonomous cars, which might have been fancier at that time. So you did right, apparently, because your company became the biggest Israeli company. I mean, an electronic system manufacturer for the whole solar industry in the world that generates $1.5 billion every year. And I think the last cap that I saw on NASDAQ was $15 billion. So chapeau.
Thank you very much.
So the first question I have to address you is why 2 months ago you decided to put this part of your life a little bit aside and to join Growth Ventures, which is a very known, reputed Israeli VC, fully dedicated to investing in deep tech startups. Can you explain us a little bit the move and the growth about Growth Ventures, and tell us also about its history and the founders? I think the audience would be interested. And what's in deep tech for you there, and also whether sustainability is one of your criteria. If it's too much for you, I will remind you the questions.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, deep tech has been something that I've been doing all my life. Also in my military, in my military service, I worked on R&D of very complicated technological projects, mostly in hardware and sophisticated computer systems. So the transition from my military service to SolarEdge was very easy. We started 5 friends. We wanted to do something that had an impact on the world. And we found that amazing business of electronics in a solar system, power electronics, inversion, monitoring, cloud remote control of solar systems was a very underserviced part of the solar world back then in 2006. And we were able to bring a lot of technology and a lot of value into this market, and indeed grow a very large company, which today spans from solar electronics, storage, smart home and smart building control, all in the aim of driving sustainability and driving more efficient energy systems, and all in the direction of the new energy world, virtual power plants and renewable energy in the grid. And after 14 years in SolarEdge, at the point where the company was very, as you said, very big, with the new business divisions that I helped form in adjacent markets, I felt that it is time for a change. The connection to Grove was very natural. Grove managing partner is called Dov Moran. Dov Moran is a known Israeli entrepreneur. He's the inventor of the disk on key. And we met through a joint investment in a very small startup, and we became friends. And I was so impressed in what Grove is doing, in the sense that the whole range of deep tech, basically all the deal flow of deep tech in Israel goes through Grove, and Grove works with the companies from a very early stage, literally sometimes from pre-seed or seed or round A. And I found that I can bring so much from my experience to new company founders. So that was a very natural transition for me, from a deep tech company to being able to fund and grow new deep tech ventures in Israel. It's simply a lot of fun. And yes, definitely one of the aspects or one of the verticals that I'm focusing in Grove is around energy and technology in energy, because there's still a lot to do. I hope I remembered everything.
Yeah, so I just repeat what you said about Dov Moran, that the founder of this VC is actually himself an entrepreneur and the inventor of the disk on key. And I know that it came out of a very sudden need that he had out of the pocket. He wanted his drive to be in his pocket, actually. I'm not sure he invested 15 years in that, but being able to invest long-term, as early as you say, in deep tech, that we make a revolution in 50 years from now, this is really very challenging. Now, can you give us a few examples maybe of startups that you are now investing in, that are in your portfolio? I'm thinking about, for instance, Neuroblade.
Yeah, so Neuroblade is actually, it's even related to the subject of our discussion here. Neuroblade is a company that is developing an in-memory processing unit, basically combining strong processor capabilities that can run AI neural network type of computation inside a memory, basically inside a DRAM memory. This solves the bottleneck of transferring data out and in to the memory in order for it to be processed in a processing unit by combining both. And the biggest need for this type of technology is actually in data centers, which are one of the largest energy consumers and largest resource consumers, and we need more and more processing and more data, exactly as you said in the beginning. And the only way that this equation, where we need more data and more processing power, but we don't want to deplete the energy capabilities of our grid and the resources, is by making computers more efficient, more effective, consume less and do more. And deep tech has basically, that's almost the only answer.
Yeah. Thank you, Lior. So I'll turn to California, to the Bay Area. Fay, where do you live exactly?
I live in, right now, today, I live in Oakland, California, Bay Area. It's East Bay. But I lived in so many different countries and cities, depending on the job, that it's never easy to know where exactly I live.
Yeah. I'll try to introduce you. Fay, you are an entrepreneur, but you are also an engineer by training in electrical and telecom engineering. You are recognized in the Bay Area, but much beyond, as the most influential woman business leader. And both as a startup founder, as an investor, you've been leading Vodafone Global Incubation and Vodafone Ventures for a while, based in the US. You are very active in promoting others, not only yourself. And you are using mobile technology to advance social change. You also chaired the Vodafone Americas Foundation. You are a very patented woman. I'm not, so I'm impressed. You have 12 patents under your own name, and you are a role model for women in tech, or for women who aspire to be in tech. And I would like to say that I would like to mimic you, but maybe it's too late. And Mimik is also the name of your latest company. I would like you to explain us what you are doing in Mimik, because I think it's exactly what we are starting to tackle here, is how to use deep tech to solve other deep tech issues and problems. Is that so?
Right. Sure. So thank you so much for your kind introduction of me. I guess my deep tech comes from just simply being curious and driven by problem solving. You know, I came from a country that I usually joke that I'm the child of a revolution, child of a war, and then child of being a refugee. So I went through all of it, and I was grade 7, 8 when the revolution happened, and pretty much overnight, a status quo changed. So I guess from quite an early on, I realized that you can't just accept the status quo, because if somebody comes and say, hey, one day you're free, the day after you can't have a mixed school of boys and girls, that's just nonsense. So you can't just accept things for the face of it. And being kind of a rebellion became the second nature, figuring out how to find innovative ways to live your life became a second nature. So when I finally landed in Canada, eventually, after a long journey, and I decided to continue my education in engineering at Concordia University, after that, I joined a tech company, and this is right at the beginning of mobile internet. So I'm aging myself, but I was working for MDSI, and it was a mobile dispatch software solution company that moving from the notion of laptop to the first generation of mobile. And I quickly realized that as we move from this unconnected sort of that laptop world to the mobility world, we can just continue applications the way they are. And that's how I ended up in starting my companies in mobile world and software world, and continued on with kind of starting Mimik, which at the beginning called Disternet. My passion has always been primarily a driver for my desire in improving people access to information, and hence their lives, right? Unfortunately, we have observed that despite the strides we made in US with penetration of connectivity and accessibility to internet, we haven't really impacted people's life as positively as we have envisioned and we had desire to do. I mean, we see the impact of social media on the divide that it has created. And we see the huge gap between the super rich and the rest of the society, that some is becoming super poor. So in 2009, with seeing that trend and trying to make a change, I started incubating this company that today we call it Mimik, but it started with the name Disternet, as in decentralizing internet.
Stick to mimik. I mean, it's much better.
Yes, absolutely. I have to tell you, I'm not the best person with finding name. And Mimik was a brainchild of my business partner, Siavash Alamuti, and today our executive chairman, because our idea was how to mimic the cloud to the edge. As you have more devices getting connected, I mean, and the compute power, thanks to Moore's law, is continuously increasing. But also the volume of data is increasing. So the idea was, as this traffic pattern in the mobile internet, we connect to cloud, we consume information, we get the content. But with a hyper-connected world, which is a transition that we're going through, where digital intersects with every aspect of our lives, whether it's connected home, connected car, connected automobile, industrial IoT, information gets generated by these devices, either via human interaction or via the machine producing that data.
What is the difference you see between the mobile explosion that you were a witness and a player in, and the current data explosion?
What is the sorry, can you repeat?
What is
the difference
that you can
even with mobile internet? I mean, with mobile internet, the first generation started from me having a phone that I can browse, but then the content became richer and richer, right? So in a sense, the volume of data that we have produced just from pretty much the early stage of mobile internet, which was, I think, around 1980s, until now, the data has increased over 3 billion times. So on one side, we constantly improving the energy consumption of the hardware, CPU, memory. We kind of constantly improving its energy consumption so that it can work more efficiently. But on another side, we're producing more data. And to send data from the device, because the traffic pattern is now changing. I'm not just going to internet to consume. My device, whether it's a sensor or a refrigerator or my mobile device, is now creating data as well, whether it's smart mobility. To constantly sending this traffic 300 miles away to a data center to get produced or to provide a response back doesn't make sense. That's why we need to fundamentally change the way that internet is actually functioning, and that's why we kind of created this notion of hybrid edge cloud, where the data can be processed on device itself before sent out to the cloud.
So not moving data for the pleasure of moving data from place to place, but trying to keep it with edge computing on device or on site. I saw Mamadou joining us, and then he disappeared, but I see you again.
And now he's here.
So just in time for you, Mamadou. Mamadou, you are now in Cameroon. No, you are now in Ivory Coast. I'm lost.
I'm in Ivory Coast, yeah.
Yeah, so you were born in Cameroon, you were raised in France, and you settled down now your activity in Ivory Coast. We are very glad to have you with us. You are, as the other speakers that I introduced before you joined us, an expert both on IT, mobile telecommunications, infrastructure, and energy. You are one of Forbes' 10 most influential men in Africa. and one of the young leaders of the World Economic Forum. Wow. You are also chairman and
Don't
CEO.
believe the hype.
I'm losing
I'm blushing
control.
now. You can't see, but
You are now your activity today. I have to promote you. So you are chairman and CEO of Ubuntu Capital, and you are investing and helping people, advising them how to invest in projects and in technologies. You have, in all the positions that you had in history, you were managing director for General Electric in Africa. You were a World Bank executive, and you were an investment banker for BNP Paribas. And in all these positions, you invested and worked actually on projects that exceeded a combined value of $25 billion. And you create thus lots of opportunities and hope for many people in Africa. So the question I have to you, Mamadou, if you are ready now to join,
sure.
we were just talking about the mobile revolution, and you were the first to bring mobile money to Africa 15 years ago. And now you are doing the same with blockchain, it seems. You work on a cryptocurrency that would be backed by real gold, not by coins or mined coins. You're going to explain us. Can you explain us about this new venture? Maybe
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. So we are indeed putting together, a digital asset backed by real gold. And the idea is to democratize access to gold for anyone so that they could be able to purchase digital gold from as low as 5 cents from their mobile phone at anywhere, from anywhere at any time. And as you know, gold is a safe resource. It has gained 500% over the past 20 years and 5,000% since 1971. So we believe that in the current context, as we enter the digital era, it will be important also for the larger bracket of the population to be able to participate to this wealth creation movement by acquiring such assets, and also the one thing is that gold is accepted everywhere in the world, right? So in the case of Africa, you have 700 million people who don't have a bank account, and worldwide you have 1.7 billion adults who are unbanked or underbanked. But most of them actually do have a mobile phone. So what about putting a digital asset that is globally accepted on their mobile phone, so that you create a whole new ecosystem where people can save, transact, and create value as a community.
Can you explain us how digital money is backed usually, and maybe talk about the mining system and the energy that the blockchain is actually using?
Yes, correct. So if you look at the situation today, in our case, the coins are minted, meaning that you just emit the coins based on the gold that is backing it. So it's just a digital process. And indeed, whenever there's a transaction, you do leverage on the blockchain to validate those transactions. In the case of Bitcoin, for instance, because it's not really backed by anything, but those coins are mined in the technological term, and basically, for a coin to be mined, you need to solve very complex algorithm and mathematical equation that generally require a large capacity in terms of servers, in terms of computing power and processing, that therefore requires a lot of energy. So ultimately, you realize that those who have been the most successful Bitcoin miners were not necessarily those who were the best in math or who had the best computers. It was those who had the energy to actually power this significant computing capacity to be able to solve the algorithm and then mine a coin. That's the number is limited. And if you take the case, for instance, in China, one of the biggest miner and Bitcoin owner of Bitcoins, who's based in China, actually had to plug all his his data center and his computing equipment straight into a hydropower plant, right? And it would basically tap into that energy at night so that it could really have a massive processing capacity that will allow him to solve as many equations as possible and that get as many bitcoins as possible.
This is very interesting. It's
highly
what we usually envisage.
Yeah.
When we talk about blockchain, usually we talk about currencies, and when we talk about currencies, it's only Bitcoin. And when we talk about Bitcoins, we talk about trading Bitcoins or storing Bitcoins, but we don't talk about creating them, and we don't realize that actually it's going upside down. It's an incitation to consume lots of algorithm and lots of energy and lots of computing power to create something that is symbolic and intangible. So what you are trying to do in Africa is saying we have natural resources. The population is not the main beneficiary of this incredible wealth. And you are taking gold, which is part of your continent production, and
correct.
You are cutting the energy costs, actually. Are you doing that alone with African players, or?
So basically, you're right to say that the currency behind Bitcoin currency is actually energy. And that's what people don't realize, right? Now, our model basically is to work with artisanal miners, small scale mines, to basically extract the gold ethically. And of course, it requires some energy to do so, but it's much less intensive, and it's also much more redistributive in terms of wealth, right? And if you have if you do responsible mining and also take care of those communities, and then mine an actual gold coin or gold asset that you then use as a collateral for a digital token, then your socio-economic impact is quite broad. And also, you're right. In the case of Africa, we produce. I think we have 40% of the global gold reserves, right? And one challenge is we're still very poor to a certain extent, although we have 7 of the 10 fastest growing economy. So the point is, why don't we make our natural resources a currency? Why don't we make it a digital asset that we can trade? Because our currencies actually keep depreciating every year. Right, so that was the whole rationale in which I got into and say, okay, so maybe we can turn it upside down and really create wealth that gets fully redistributed, and it's backed by something real, which is gold to start with, and could be later silver, platinum, and even forest actually, right? Because of the carbon credit, you have different ways to do this. But ultimately, then you have a wealth creation model that relies on something that has always had values across geographies and civilization all along human history. So you're linking technology with impact and values.
Thank you very much.
The equation we want to solve.
Now we'd like maybe to have you tackle a little bit the trends that you are witnessing today. We are always using more data. We are always looking for more real time and strengthening on the speed of our of our processors, I would like you to say something about the energy coefficient of this exponential availability of data, data that needs to be processed, stored. You said, Fay, we can avoid transferring it, but it relies on computing power, and this power demand is so exponential that maybe I will start by asking you, Lior, are you able to calculate, to evaluate your impact when you do a simple thing as simple as sending, let's say, an email with an attachment? And
it is very complicated to measure something like this. Some small trivial action like this, it's almost incalculable how much a single action like sending an email consumes, especially because when you're sending an email, you don't even realize that in some cases this is bounced off what's called a nearby cloud, or sometimes it's bounced off a backup cloud or an alternative server, and it can take different amounts of energy. What you can see for sure is that if you want the same processing power and the same connectivity speed for your server, I'm not talking about the connectivity speed in your home, but the connectivity speed of your data center, then within 3 years, same processing power and same connectivity speed would be about half the power. You don't see it. We see more and more power being consumed because people keep replacing their data center hardware, stronger and stronger hardware, which we can do because for the same processing power, we actually take half every 3 years, and that is due to new silicon geometry processes. You move from 10 nanometer to 7 nanometer to 5 nanometer, it moves low. I mentioned that. And with that, yes, we get more processing power, but we also get more processing power at lower power level. And same goes for the connectivity speed. A transceiver of 100 giga that connects to data centers or connects to 5G sites would consume half what we consume today 3 years from now. We just immediately when that happens, we move to a 200 giga transceiver just because we can and we need.
Is there something that you, I think, mentioned to me called virtual power plants?
Yes.
So what is it about?
Virtual power plants, it's an extremely interesting field where you're actually leveraging computational power and renewable energy. When you look at renewable energy sources, they are great, they are cheap, they are becoming cheaper and cheaper every day. They are easy to build. In most cases, solar can be installed everywhere on residents, on commercial buildings, in large fields. Same goes for wind is mainly in large fields, but they're becoming cheaper and better. The problem with all renewable energy, almost all renewable energy sources, is that they are intermittent. And our grid was designed when the grid was designed more than 100 years ago. It was designed in the notion that generation is fully known and fully controlled, and demand is completely unexpected because people can consume whatever they want to consume. We are moving to a world where actually demand is still unexpected, but generation is also becoming unexpected. More and more intermittent power sources, more and more small-scale systems, residential systems, commercial systems, which their availability might not be 100% like a large power plant, and they are for sure not controlled. The grid managers are facing a very big problem. The solution for that is called virtual power plant. Virtual power plant is a data layer that sits, you can think of it that it sits above all these separate distributed energy sources, all these separate intermittent energy sources, and it reflects the performance of the system to the grid manager as if it was one power plant, a virtual power plant. It also gives them the ability to control them in an aggregated way. So
I understand. So it's actually a digital twin.
It's a kind of a digital twin, but it's a distributed digital twin. Like it's kind of like controlling the hive,
I see.
providing a hive mind to a lot of systems.
I'd like to give the floor to Fay now. If you have anything to add before we move to the social and the impact of deep tech for our conclusion, if you have anything to add about the ecological impact of deep tech and the one that you are an expert in, edge computing.
Sure. So yes, I mean, from the energy consumption, as also Lior said, by the way, calculating is very difficult because you need to kind of look at the networking plan. You need to know what type of server they're using, what type of communication, etc., etc. So in order for us, again, the one thing that we believe in is as you have more devices are connecting, you might as well produce, and they're producing data, and they are within the vicinity of each other, or they are attached to the same network. You might as well do a shortcut of the communication and allow the data to get processed on the same device, allow the communication to be used more direct between the devices, and you go to server farms and cloud when you need them. And the way to do that, again, what Lior mentioned is that, for example, the power computing, the grid computing, energy grid been designed decades ago based on certain elements, but we can't change them overnight. The way to also change them and evolve them is also edge in. You kind of, now that I need to create a new application for my smart home, I use the edge technology, and as part of doing that, I slowly bring some of the functions of, for example, energy production and distribution also to that level. And within the next decade, if we take this edge-in approach across everything that we're doing, and you look at future, all by sudden you realize that you manage to modernize things in more rapid, iterative approach versus trying to pretty much change everything overnight and yank everything out and replace them with new things. That's really the way that we're looking at the advantage of edge cloud communication and this hybrid approach without tightly coupling. I mean, one of the things about deep tech is that, and the new areas of deep tech is that all of a sudden we try to use the new technology for everything. For example, blockchain is a great technology. Consensus-based algorithm has been around for so many years, and Bitcoin is pretty great. But all by sudden we can't apply blockchain and Bitcoin to everything that we do, right? So we kind of have to start thinking about what are the practical ways of using each technology for a specific application, and separate the technology layer, hardware layer, communication layer, and application layer, have a clear separation between them that you can iterate things very fast instead of tightly coupling everything together.
So your conclusion, because we need to conclude each of us, would be that we need to be differentiated and smart and hybrid in our approach, and as we do in energy mix, have a deep tech mix that really fits the usage.
Absolutely.
On the social aspect, I would like to go back to Mamadou regarding the 5G. What's going on in Africa with 5G, and it's a deep tech that is going to have maybe a very social impact? And then it would be your last sentence.
Yes. So, I mean, when it comes to 5G, you have a few countries that have been looking at it, like Kenya. I think Cote d'Ivoire also is looking at issuing a license. Yes, it would definitely help in terms of big data, as was mentioned earlier, etc. Of course, there's a bit of controversy around it, but I think it has its pros and cons, and there's also competition. I mean, when you see what Elon Musk is putting with the satellite, or even Google, also with with those balloons, that's the interesting thing, because by putting something up there, you cover everyone, versus trying to get capillarity and develop. So it's going to be an interesting development to watch very closely.
Yeah, definitely. And we are off-grid in this kind of balloon ideas. We are open-minded and off-grid.
No, and the point, the case of Africa, everything off-grid has been successful, and I'll tell you why. Because if you go back to the old model of, old fixed line, we leapfrog fixed line, right? And it's also now starting to happen on the energy side, right? With, outdated grid network and, challenged utilities. Now people have their own solar unit, and they started developing themselves. So there's this sense of, how can I go fast without having to rely on anyone else but me? And if there's a balloon or a satellite, then you just go, it's plug and play, versus waiting for the towers to be put. So there's this sense of leapfrogging that is very strong in the culture and mindset, and that really get people to choose the kind of speed of development they want, versus relying on an infrastructure. Yeah.
So the last minute will go maybe to Lior. Lior, as a successful entrepreneur, what would be the deep tech that you would advise us to look at for making the next unicorn? But unicorn is small for you. The next big transition and big disruption in terms of business. What is?
So I will tell you what excites me about the deep tech of today. We see a lot of interesting direction in the combination between semiconductors and biology. Basically, more and more people that are combining biology into semiconductors in a way that electronics itself can react and become a sensor or a reactor. Very, very interesting. And the other really big field, actually, Mamadou mentioned, is space. A lot of development, a lot of technologies around communication in space, data centers in space, which form an interesting energy solution in some cases. These two fields are, to my opinion, the most exciting deep tech technology fields these days.
So if we had to end with one word, I would say bioconvergence.
Definitely.
Making IT converge with life.
Exactly.
And investing in bioconvergence, because this is where people are going to make the big money, according to you.
And also a big impact on the world.
And also a big
as important.
Yeah.
And if I may add, put a stop in data exploitation. As consumers and as producers of data, we need to have a stake at the table, and we need to have an income from the data that we're creating, versus only third party making revenue from it.
So as you were advocating for free flow of information, now you advocate for the fair redistribution of data wealth.
The income. I mean, data should be my income. It should be, in fact, a new class of.
I fully agree. Data is the future universal basic income, because that's the only thing that links you to your humanity, that will then be able to have value, even if you don't do anything.
Exactly. That's a new class of assets that we can monetize.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, everyone. I hope to see you soon.
Same here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having us.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.